So make sure you don't get fooled by the media, because the media tells you everything's good. GDP is up, unemployment's down, the economy is back on track. But the one thing you really need to pay attention to is what's really happening behind the curtain. And that is, we are at the end of a long-term debt cycle. You want to know what that means? Well, this is What Now, What's Next, and we're going to get into it. So you've heard me talk about this before, the long-term debt cycle. Most of you have never seen one in your lifetime because the last one would have been right around, well, let's see, the Great Depression. And then you have definitely seen debt cycles because you've seen the short-term debt cycle, which is usually every 5 to 7 years, you know, the dot-com crash. Then you had the Great Recession. Oh yeah, then you had the pandemic. And what's coming? Well, that's what's next. You see, the long-term debt cycle is every 50 to 75 years, and it's a freaking doozy. And that's the one you really need to start looking at and preparing for, which means, why are you still buying stocks at these inflated prices? Why are you listening to the talking heads on TV? They're lying to you to get ratings. Duh.
Haven't got a brain.
CNN Plus just went out of business. Guess enough people are starting to wake up and not want to listen to a bunch of talking heads tell lies. Well, here's the truth. We're going down, folks. Just like the Titanic, the stock market is going down. I'm not the only one saying it. It's all over the news if you actually pay attention, but they're not telling you what I'm about to tell you. They're not going to tell you that all these actions that the Fed is doing right now, well, let's see, they're raising interest rates how many times this year? 7 times. They're unwinding the balance sheet to the tune of $95 billion. That means they're going to suck about $3 trillion of the $5 trillion they just printed back out by selling bonds in the open market. Oh, and those rising interest rates, we went right over that. But you know what that means? Well, that means that last year, you could have got a 30-year mortgage for about 3%. How much is it right now? Oh yeah, over 6. Oh, and we've only gone up 0.25%. The next one, the Fed has said they gotta slow things down. They gotta slow demand down. And how they're gonna do that is they're gonna come out with a 50 basis point increase. Oh, sorry, 0.5% is what that means. That's right, 25 basis points took us from 3 to 6% on the 30-year fixed. So what is another 0.5% gonna do? And then another 0.5%. Oh yeah, and then there's a whole bunch more of those. A total of 7 this year alone. What do you think they're trying to do, folks? Are they just curbing inflation, slowing down demand? Well, that's what they want you to believe, but let's push the curtain aside for a second. They know that the whole thing is gonna go poof and go down, just like I said. And in doing that, they need some ammunition in the gun. Not talking about the Russia-Ukraine ammunition. I'm talking about the ammunition that the Fed and the US government use every single time the markets tank. They used it during the pandemic to a major point. And what is that? They lower interest rates. But you can't lower interest rates when interest rates are already low. So how do you solve that? Well, you get together in little private meetings, you come up with some lie and tell everybody, oh, we got to slow things down, we got to curb inflation. The government wants inflation. Wake up, silly children. They want inflation. But what they don't want is they don't want everything to come crashing down, because deflation is what's next. And deflation means that the price of all the assets starts to deflate. You ever pop a balloon? Yeah. But you ever just let the air out slowly out of a balloon? You can pull it, make it all different noises. Well, that's what they're gonna do, but they're gonna do it pretty quick. But all that money you got because your stocks are up. Your 401k's up. Oh my God, your real estate's worth more than it's ever been, and it's never gonna go down. Think again, silly rabbit, because it's going to go down. As they raise interest rates, your real estate's absolutely going to go down. It's supply and demand. Home builders are already slowing down what they're doing. And you think, oh, that's just going to create more demand. Chris, that's not going to slow things down. Yeah, it's going to create more demand, but when people can't afford the price of real estate, what are they going to do? Demand lower pricing. Folks, I'm not that smart. I'm not telling you everything that you shouldn't already know. Just logic should tell you exactly how this works. It's economics 101. You went through it in high school, so did I. You know, in all this talk, I'm thinking, some of you might actually want to know, what should I actually do? Well, you know what you should do? You should subscribe to this YouTube channel. You should click that little alerts button, because I'm putting out videos all the time that tell you exactly step by step what you need to do to prepare for this storm. Click the subscribe button. Hit that little bell too. what you really need to do is you need to look at how to prepare. That means if you got gains, do what Warren Buffett says and buy low, which, sorry, you can't really buy low right now, but you should sell high, which is his second step, so you don't lose money. Because you know what? You're all thinking that things are going good, but pretty soon you're going to be crying the blues and blaming everybody else.
What did you do that for?
Time to listen, folks. Tick, tock, beep. You're out of time. Well, other things in the news is China.
China!
Have you heard what's going on over there? That's right. They're locked down. Oh, it's a whole fiasco if you watch the news. But what does that mean? Well, all of you think, oh, that's China. What does that have to do with us? Well, you know all those ships that were stuck off of Huntington Beach and out in California, they couldn't get into the port? Well, that's what's going to happen over in China. All the ships that went back to fill up and get more goods to come back here to fill the supply and demand needs are now sitting off their ports. Why? Well, everybody's locked down. Ain't nobody unloading ships and filling containers. No, all those ships are gonna pile up out there, creating the same problem we already had, and round we go. Pay attention, folks. And the US government and all the NATO forces are still sanctioning Russia, which maybe that's what they should do, because in war times, that's just what happens. But they don't like the sanctions. So now that's creating some ripple effects in oil. That's creating ripple effects in supply and demand, because now we aren't buying oil from Russia. And we used to buy a lot of oil. And you know who else used to buy a lot of oil? European countries. Guess what they're doing? Talking about not buying oil. But you know who's increasing their oil consumption from Russia? Because Russia's oil price went down because, hey, US and Europe are not buying oil from Russia, so who's going to start buying at the lower prices? That's right, China, India, and a whole bunch of other countries. So right now, Russia really hasn't felt the pinch of these sanctions. They may, but you know who's really feeling the punch? You. You know, like Mike Tyson says, you know, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. You been to the gas pumps lately? How's that feel? That's a kick straight in the nuts. That's not a punch in the face. Oh, the US is just going to open up those reserves, as you've heard? Again, stop listening to the media. They're only going to open up the reserves a little bit. They're not going to do anything to stop the bleeding. That's right. So inflation's over 8.5%. Gas prices are way up. Food is almost unaffordable. But what's next? Oh, food shortages. That's right. Stock up on eggs, stock up on your milk. Make sure you get some rice and beans, because I'm thinking there's going to be a food shortage, because you know where we get a lot of our wheat from? Ukraine. And you know who just invaded the area that gives us a lot of those imports, those wheat imports? Russia. So do you think we're going to have a problem with food? Shit, we had a problem with toilet paper during the pandemic. We now are going to have a problem with rice, beans, milk, and all the things that you need to eat. Now that's a pretty serious problem. That's way worse than gas prices. But coming to a theater near you called the grocery store. You know, I invest in Bitcoin and Ethereum and a couple others, but I buy the support and resistance levels. I don't do what most people do. Most people are just buying it and saying, you know, that's going to the moon. Just like Kennedy Sr. did with the Shoe Shine Boy. The Shoe Shine Boy was giving him stock tips, and Kennedy said, you know what? If the Shoe Shine Boy is giving me stock tips, maybe I should sell everything. Well, maybe you should look at that too. Because crypto, and let's focus on Bitcoin, is it really as safe as we think? It is decentralized. There is a finite amount. Hey, I'm bought in, right? Listen, I invest in it. But recently, I just heard that the FBI seized a whole bunch of Bitcoin. Wait a second. If it's so safe, if it can't be cracked, if it can't be hacked because it's decentralized, well then how in the hell is the FBI seizing people's Bitcoin? Please explain that to me. Maybe you do know more than I do, because I'm not a Bitcoin expert. But you know what else I do know is sanctions. They're sanctioning people, and they're trying to curb the trade and the flow of Bitcoin and other cryptos to fund Russia. That's right. So now they're really out to get those decentralized coins. You know why? Well, because they're probably going to launch their own digital currency. And guess what their own digital currency is going to be? Not decentralized. It's going to be centralized. It's going to be modifiable. It's going to be able to be changed. Pretty soon you might have a little card that you go to the grocery store and they tell you how much money you can spend. Hopefully we don't see that in our lifetime, but I bet you we will. We might even see the fall of the great empire called the United States of America. Folks, if we don't make some changes soon, if we don't get some people in power that actually have the ability to make the changes needed and do the things to get us back to where we are, I don't know. I don't know what the future is. Listen, I still think the United States of America is the greatest country on earth. Too many people have fought and died to provide that freedom, but that freedom is just as easily given away. And that's what it seems like is happening today. And we're just sitting back, watching it happen, listening to the media, pretending that the media is telling us the truth. Tick, tock, tick, tock. All these things are things you're not thinking about because you're looking over here and everything's happening over here. Does that sound familiar? Because it seems like it's been happening like this over and over again. But hey, at least you don't have to wear a mask on a plane anymore. I mean, I guess there's some good news, a silver lining to this whole thing. So if you liked this video, you gotta check this video out. It's called The Fed Rate Hike, where I get into exactly what you should be doing right now to prepare for this. This is What Now, What's Next. See you next time.